All right. So this is the first episode of Hot or Not. We're going over rebrands here with the branding expert, Ron Ladouceur. Ron, let's get right into it.
All right, let's go.
Okay. So first brand we have is GM.
Mm-hmm.
So GM, I think the idea here is that they are looking to go into the electric revolution. But what do you think about this this rebrand?
I think it's great. At first I'm like a little shocked because every time something that classic changes, you go, what have they done? What have they done? They've gone lowercase more or less here, which signals friendliness. And they've taken that underline that you see under the M, and they're using that in all their promotion for the basic technology that they're building their electric car. So that's the platform for the electric car. And they've come out this week and announced this whole movement towards electric car. And even the kind of goofy shininess of that blue around that logo, I think speaks electricity. So I think they've done a good job with this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that one for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Next brand we have Burger King.
Who the hell cares?
Why do you say that?
Okay, I mean that new logo is, first of all, their old logo.
That's what I heard. So this is a retro logo.
It's a retro
logo back now, right?
There's no question they should run away from the 1980s, 1990s Starstruck logo that they had, right?
Right.
It's just right out of first generation computer graphics, 3 dimensions. It's just awful on so many different levels. But the new one is the old one, and it just says this is a brand really afraid of making any change and being anything other than it is, and we're just going to commit to irrelevance for the rest of our journey. How about you?
Perfect. I love it. That's a good summary right there. So Kia.
Yes.
And this brand was, when I looked at this, I thought this was more of a change even than GM.
Yes.
So I had to put a logo of one of their concept, a showing of one of their concept cars, because I really couldn't even picture this logo.
Sure. Well, you have to admit the old logo had to go away. It's cheesy as all get out.
Of course.
I mean, I don't know who did that, but it's a terrible logo. And the new one, it's funny because the logo on the car is a little different than the logo above. The logo on the car separates the letters a little bit, whereas the logo,
yeah, you're right.
The
key, all the letters in Kia seem to be a little separated.
Yeah, a little separated. The new logo I played with this morning. I don't know if I'll send it to you. I think it's just a little wrong, but it's mostly right. I think they're on the right track. They have a little problem with legibility.
I agree with that. I think the key is really hard to make out. I think it looks kind of cool when you see it on this futuristic car.
Yes. I mean, the brand is, from a design perspective, the product branding is just first class now. I mean, that Kia car is a cool looking car, you have to admit.
I agree.
You slap that old logo on it and you've just brought it down, 20 years. It's terrible. They needed to do something. It's not quite there, but it's darn close, but the K is a tough letter. It's called the leg.
Okay.
That part of the K that goes down.
Yeah.
With the part of the K that goes down, if you look at the rest of the logo, it's really, you could read it upside down the same way you could read it right side up. But that K stops your eye. So you're going zip down and then up, and it's like, okay. And then it creates that big weird triangle negative space between the K and the I. And that's just stopping me. Now, this morning, all I did was thicken the leg slightly to the left. I'll show it to you sometime. So just
that'd be great to see.
And it made the K more legible, and it stopped it from stopping your eyes. So I'll give that to Kia for free.
Okay, sounds good.
So you like this logo or not?
So I definitely agree with you. From the Kia's old logo to me looks super old. I associate Kia with not a quality car.
Sure.
My dad used to have a Kia for like 3 years. It was like one of his beater cars. Eventually got into an accident. Guy was lucky to even make it out alive. I mean, this thing was a cube by the time he was out of this car accident. So more experience on my end. I've just never associated it with that quality. But this, I gotta say, like, it looks super cool. It looks futuristic. So there's something about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy it, but you know what? I'm definitely going to look twice.
Yeah.
When I see this car on the street.
My brother-in-law works for the New York State Automobile Dealers Association, and
Okay.
Kia and Hyundai are brands that they're really surprised by. Those two brands have just, moved upwards in terms of quality, but in terms of styling, just
And I will admit that too, for sure, for Kia and even Hyundai. I mean, they spun off Genesis to that luxury line. I mean, Genesis are beautiful cars. So,
yep. So they're in the right direction. It's a little trouble from we call in typography ligature perspective. That's where characters touch.
Yeah.
The I and the A are fine, but that K has got some problems. Just minor though. I think they're in the right track.
Awesome. Okay, so the next logo we have is Blue Point Brewing Company. This is a Long Island company, but they were bought by Anheuser-Busch. This was Anheuser-Busch's.
Anheuser?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, so this is one of the first craft breweries that they brought, and now this brand is everywhere. And what's funny is they didn't.
You're Long Island, so what do you think of this?
So I was a fan of their old logo, but when you start thinking about the COVID-19 and what has it done, people don't drink in bars anymore, at least in New York. It's really not happening. So where do people get beers? They get beers on these things on your phone. Again, keep going back to this on apps like Drizzle.
Yep.
The original Blue Point logo, although I love it, it screams Long Island. It is so hard to read on their website. It's so hard to read on digital. Where Blue Point, I feel like it's easy to read on digital. But what's as the expert brander, like, what do you think?
I don't know yet. I mean, I'd have to see this in application. I'm regarding the one on the left, the original logo. I am just sick and tired of that, that bad printing, that bad letterpress look. I see it just in every logo, which is, the inking, because we're not inking anything. It's just this, it says, aren't we authentic? Aren't we old? Aren't we, turn of the last century? And that's all fine. I'm fine, but I think it's just been beaten to death. Every craft brewery to a degree has that thing. Every craft coffee shop has that like bad inking look to it. And people still love it, but it's going to go away. And I think you're right. In digital space, it doesn't translate. But I don't know about that diagonal. I mean, I know they're trying to echo that, that buoy, right?
I agree with that. I think this is a pure digital play.
Yeah.
Honestly, I get where you're coming from.
They're playing with the authenticity, with the brewing co, with this like, I gather that's a longe latitude out there, and there's, some kind of, isn't this nautical, old-fashioned kind of thing. So I get that. I'm a little troubled by how big the O is relative to the rest of it, but I'm not sure it needed the slide. I didn't notice
that until you pointed that out, but that is.
Every other letter is really vertical if you look at it. It's got the big up. But maybe that should have been the focus of this logo. That diagonal is very strong, but it's in typography, it's like almost another letter form. It's like almost another I in there. It's too much like the letters. But I'll reserve judgment. They may be onto something. They may, it's got some good qualities to it. Did it need the diagonal at all? I don't know, but they were trying, echoing the old logo. So, so I'll say, definitely got it's an update. We'll give it.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll put it out the hot for now rating, but we have to see where they're going to go with it. I'm going to send you their Instagram and some of that stuff because I think maybe that will move the needle.
I could see it being strong. I could see it being used. Even the diagonal. I can see them using that in a way that would make that whole logo pop. For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have Petco.
What have they done to my logo?
Yeah. What's going on here?
Yeah, they're from what I read, Petco is trying to be this kind of wellness company, not just, it's, I don't know if it's just pet wellness, but it just says wellness. Now there's the whole movement over the last 20 years, which is pets are people too. And so many Gen Xers and millennials are adopting pets as surrogate children, and treating pets as if they're family members. So this play to be more of a wellness company for pets, or just even a wellness company, and maybe it's pets and maybe it's people. I don't know. I don't know where they're going with that. But that might be kind of revolutionary, because we are treating our animals as people. Pets are people too. But there's just something so damn adorable about that original cat and dog. And
Yeah, I gotta say, I think this new Petco logo, I mean, is it me or does it look like Casper? I feel like they copied Casper, right?
Yeah,
This doesn't, it just doesn't mean anything to me. That's mine, but that's my opinion.
I know that their long-term brand supporters hate the new logo. They hate the loss of the cat and dog. They're but and it's just boring.
Yeah, it's a thumbs down for me for sure. Okay, now we have our next logo, highly controversial, the Aunt Jemima brand. So
Sure.
Aunt Jemima brand is now the Pearl Milling Company.
Yes. Well, they had no
Thoughts on
choice.
this?
Lots of thoughts on this.
Okay.
How deeply do you want me to go? I mean, I wrote a paper last year called "The Rise of White Flour," which was published to the SCA Journal, and it talks about this really critical transition in branding and marketing that happened, say, 1890 to 1910, where that's when we see the emergence of national branding for the first time. I don't know if you remember from class, maybe I wasn't even teaching it at the time. There was something called the Unita biscuit. You remember the Unita biscuit? Did we ever talk about that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
It was the first product of the Nabisco company. It was called the National Biscuit Company. And it was the first product that had kind of, well, that wasn't the first product that had a standardized logo. Those really are tobacco brands like Mail Pouch, etc. But it was the first brand that had a national advertising campaign, and they had the same color scheme, the same logo, on all their products, and it was breakthrough. They spent $7 million in 1900 to promote this cracker. Now, they didn't have a spokesperson or whatever we want to call the Aunt Jemima character. They didn't have a character associated with that. Some of the other flour brands though did, and there was one called Imperial Flour that used what is called, so Aunt Jemima is called the mammy trope. So it's this black slave maid, and that trope, that image was actually used to promote a lot of different products over the years, and it settled on Aunt Jemima. And then there's something called the Tom trope, which you've probably seen if you've ever seen Uncle Ben's Rice.
Yeah.
There's this butler now, but he was originally more a slave. Or Cream of Wheat. Are you familiar with Cream of Wheat?
Yeah, I am. Both the brands I'm familiar with for sure.
Yeah. The Cream of Wheat uses a character named Rastus, which is a black cook. He's got a big cook's hat on. And so those brands, Rastus, Uncle Ben, and Aunt Jemima, survived right up until what? Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And now we look at them and go, what the F are you doing?
Right.
I mean, you're, now I have a book here. It's called Slave in a Box.
Okay.
It was written, it's pretty old now, 1998, written by a woman named M.M. Manning. And it talks about the history of this mark, or these marks, Aunt Jemima, as being part of this whole mythology of the lost cause. You familiar with that phrase?
No. Why don't you explain it?
So I'll try to be brief here.
Okay.
The lost cause is how the South reimagined what the Civil War was about.
Okay.
Rather than it being a defense of slavery, which is what it was, it became a defense of states' rights, and it became a defense of this kind of old South culture. And as part of that, they created these tropes. They created these images. One of them was the happy black maid. If you've ever seen the movie Gone with the Wind,
Mhm.
And the Mammy character, I don't know nothing about birth and no babies, famously. She's the classic example of the house slave who was actually, before the Civil War, just perfectly happy serving their master,
Yeah,
nursing the
right.
baby, and advertisers helped the South create this Edenic image of what the South was prior to the Civil War. This whole idea that, okay, maybe there was some abuse of slaves, but for the most part, everybody was happy. Everybody, served the masters in their house. Nobody complained. Jello used these images, and the other brands that we talked about used these images, and it became kind of a way to, as we moved into an era when we started cooking for ourselves and no longer had cooks in the house, and women, had convenience foods,
Mhm.
you were able to say, but I've got a maid working for me. Her name is Aunt Jemima, so
Wow.
that's the nature of slave in a box, right? And I mean, I grew up with this. I remember during the 1960s that there were some protests about Aunt Jemima. And as a kid in the 1960s, I was like, what are you talking about? Who cares?
Right.
She's,
But when you understand that background history, that's all the context you need right there.
yeah. Now, with that, let's move to what the new, it's a terrible rebranding.
I mean, do you think it's a cop out?
They're trying to, drag that imagery, that
Oh, completely.
standard forward.
They have put minimal effort into this rebrand. I,
They had to do something, but you can see why they resisted it so long, because that is a strong brand, Aunt Jemima, and it's impossible to carry forward after Black Lives Matter. You're just signaling that we don't care.
right. It was the absolute last straw, probably decades overdue, but
Decades overdue, but they needed to go in a different direction. They needed to make a stronger new brand, and just go, instead of this kind of, we're just going to weaken everything about our old brand and call it our new brand.
right.
And
So it's just complete missed opportunity. Like, at least in my mind, and I don't know what the data is behind who really buys Aunt Jemima, what demographic that looks like.
yeah.
But I mean, like, didn't they have the largest opportunity to get earned media to really try to maybe even be the face of empowerment for people of color, for being a brand for everybody, for inclusivity? I mean, do you think that was even a conversation? Or
I'm sure it was one, and I could tell you had a bunch of mid-level marketing executives in a room at, who's the parent brand for Aunt Jemima? Is it Pillsbury? I don't remember. Uh, you had a bunch of executives in the room, and they're all wringing their hands like this, like, because in the corporate world, we'll finish on this. In the corporate world, you're too nervous about your job, which is a very good job. You're making $150,000 a year, and the only thing you need to do to ensure that you're going to make $150,000 next year is not screw up. And so
not have a decrease in sales?
yeah, or no, just, I'm not going to do anything that anybody's going to notice, because I want my budget to be,
Carried
transferred
over.
to next year, and I want all of my staff to still be in place, and I can't shake it up. To do anything other than this would be to take a risk and shake things up and put into risk my entire happy corporate life. And so this is why new brands and challenger brands have an opportunity, because what have they got to lose? They could come out with a brand new pancake mix that, is the Black Lives Matter pancake mix, and have at it. And I think right now a challenger brand coming after the pancake world has a great opportunity to put
Absolutely.
Aunt Jemima out of business.
Absolutely. There's a huge opportunity here.
Yes.
So I think we are both in agreement. Pearl Milling Company, absolute disaster, terrible brand, big thumbs down.